Well, a new report finds Oranga Tamariki is not fit for purpose and lacks vision and strategy. However, the same report has been criticised for not going far enough to prompt the needed transformational change. The government created an advisory group in January to help reform Oranga Tamariki as part of its response to widespread criticism of the ministry's policy of removing vulnerable children from their families. Well, I'm joined now by Advisory Board Chair Matthew Tukaki and from Lady Turete Moxon from the National Urban Māori Authority. Tēnā kōrero.
Morning, Afana. Good to be with you.
If I start with you first, Matthew, you haven't called for a scrapping of Oranga Tamariki. Why?
Well, I think, first of all, let's be practical. When are we going to scrap an agency? I've heard the calls throughout the airways this morning. What, tomorrow? What do we do with the 5,400 children that are in care of the state right now? We have to be progressive, and we also have to work on a plan to devolve authority and also resources to Māori hapu iwi, and clearly the report outlines that. We've gone even further, Corin, by working over the next few months with people such as Lady Moxon and others in respect of setting up those enduring governance arrangements. And so actually the report goes even further than that by recentering what has been a focus on intervention and intensive intervention over many years to prevention, and that's where a lot of our Māori organisations
Can you give me and listeners an example of how this devolving of some responsibility to communities will work in practice?
Yeah, sure. So when you have a look at some of the MOUs or whatever it is that they've been signing up over the last few years, and we've been out to speak to many of these organisations right now, they've already got plans on the table for what they're currently able to do and wanting to do right now versus the medium to longer term plans that they want to have in place, but they lack the resources to achieve that. And a lot of our Māori organisations in particular, they're just doing this on absolute love, manaakitanga and so on and so forth without the funding and the investment to do it. So the first thing is to release an investment pipeline to all of those organisations based on, and the report clearly
does that give you, sorry to interrupt, and I'll come to you, Lady Moxon, in a second, but does that give coverage across the country in urban centres? Is it going to mean you get that consistency?
Absolutely. Well, and also, let's be really clear here, individual rohi and individual iwi hapu are different and are facing different challenges. In Auckland, for example, when you have a look at what's happening in Auckland right now with COVID-19, the amplification of on stress on social services and support networks, it's incredibly huge. And don't forget, we're also dealing with long-standing issues prior to COVID-19 anyway, so that's the first thing. But the second big thing that's going to remain in place, at least in the interim until we get these governance arrangements of permanent stuff in play, is that this board is not going anywhere. Traditionally, as you know, Corin, reports go to the government, they get implemented by or not by the government agency. There is no what next moment. We will be monitoring quite carefully and quite clearly and methodically these recommendations for implementation by the agency in between now and the...
Sure, right. So the pressure's on there. Lady Turete Moxon, your reaction to this, does it go far enough?
I don't think it does, even though I've got to say that at least it's moving forward, and I think that the vision is there, but it doesn't go far enough in terms of rangatiratanga and Māori mana motuhake. Now, it's one thing to put out contracts here, there, and everywhere, but it's still a master-servant relationship, and that's something we've discussed and talked about a lot in terms of giving the mana of our families back to themselves, so that they can be the best parents they can be. They can do the best that they can do for their children. And that's been I think the missing link, and devolving out. It's one thing to say, yes, we're going to do this and give this back to the communities and work with providers everywhere to do all of this. But it's to give the mana back to the people to make those decisions in their own way. It's very different from a master-servant relationship. It's what it is, what we were wanting and looking for was that we would be able to determine what happens to our whānau with them in the future. But at the moment, it's really, the mana is still with the
So you're still worried that
government.
Those iwi organisations that work in that sector will still be reliant on getting the funding from the Crown?
Yes, absolutely. And it, I know that we're looking at a governance group and all of that, but it's pointless having all of these things if they don't have the mana and to be able to make decisions that are relevant and innovative and creative for ourselves. When we're being told this is how you do it, this is what you should be doing, this is how you should be doing it, you know? And what's changed really?
Lady Tureti Moxon, thank you very much for that. Also speaking earlier, Lady Tureti is from the National Urban Māori Authority, speaking earlier to Matthew Tukaki, who was on the advisory board, in fact the chair of it, that drafted the report.